I've gone for the 3-0 win at Edgeley Park to stay in League One under Les Parry. I think the one that clinched it for me, we've already touched on Ian Goodison. I think the fact that he scored the goal that set us on our way just made that extra special for me. The tension in the ground before the game was so palpable because we were sort of hanging over the trapdoor. We took so many fans. I can't remember how many fans we took. You might know off the top of your head, but I just remember that we had more than half the gate, didn't we? We had two sides of the ground. I remember that much. We had behind the goal and we had all along the side. I was in the side, sort of on the halfway line. And the tension before the game, we were all just so nervous and uptight. And, a lot of these games you go to, you sort of, there's a lot of joy, there's a lot of singing and stuff. I just remember everyone being so tense before the game because we just thought at that time that dropping into League Two was the worst thing in the world. And as I say, if I think of going mad for a Tranmere goal, I don't remember going as mad for a Tranmere goal as I went when Ian Goodison slammed that ball into the back of that net. Number one, because of who it was, and number two, because it just released all this tension that 3,000 Tranmere fans, however many were there, you just felt the euphoria of that just sort of released all this tension and energy. And as I say, Goody will have been, I don't know how old he'll have been then, but he'll have been well into his mid to late 30s at that point. So we'll have all have known that he was coming to the end of his career, even though he did end up to go on to play until he was about 40 odd. But for him to have that moment, that guitar celebration, which bizarre, I don't know where that came from. It was just such a special moment. And then, of course, we were comfortable then. We were nervous at the start, but the minute that goal went in, I just felt we were comfortable. We dominated the game. I think Ian Moore scores the second, doesn't he? And then Josh Labadie gets the third, and we're all on the pitch breaking the crossbar. And it was a special day. And I think for Les to be the manager as well, someone who, for me, was Mr. Tranmere. And again, for people of our age, we only ever remember Les being involved in the dugout as a physio and then as a manager. I think for him to lead us to safety in that way was very, very special. And yeah, like I say, I'm glad I managed to get it in my top 5 because even though, avoiding relegation shouldn't be something to be celebrated, we certainly celebrated it that day.
Did you run on the pitch at the end? Because that's the only time I've ever run on the pitch.
I did actually, yeah.
And if you think about it, like all the ones at the turn of the 2000s I was too young to have considered running on the pitch. Other than Stockport and maybe Forest Green in the playoff semi-finals, there's been nothing since then that's been worth running on the pitch for. So that Stockport game's the only one that I've ever invaded a pitch after a win. And I just remember running on and then thinking, what do I do now?
That's exactly what it, yeah.
Where do I go now? All the players have gone. What do I do now? And probably quite sheepishly walked straight off again.
Well, what's funny is I did exactly the same. What year was this game? I've got it somewhere.
2010, 8th of May, 2010.
Okay, so I'll have been 19. And I remember having that exact emotion. I've only ran on the pitch twice in my life. It was that day, and it was Forest Green in the playoff final on the second leg. And I ran on the pitch that day, and I did exactly the same thing at the age of, I'll probably been, 30 then, something like that. Ran on the pitch, and then I'm like, what do you do now? Like, you literally get to the centre circle, and you're like, what do you do now? And that's exactly the emotion you have. So I'm not endorsing run on the pitch. So if anybody's watching this, do not run on the pitch. But yeah, I did run on the pitch at Stockport. That was the first time I ever did it. And I think everyone
did you?
I didn't. No, I didn't. That's just again another famous Tranmere moment, isn't it? That broken crossbar. And as you look back now, it was a little. I say insensitive because obviously Stockport were absolutely rotten, weren't they? Which ended up, they got relegated that year, relegated again, and ended up in the Conference North. So, when we look back at those years where like Bury celebrated on our pitch and things, we absolutely hated it. So no doubt the Stockport fans will have hated every minute of it. But as I say, just that release of the tension, I think for everybody in the ground or everyone that was a Tranmere fan was just amazing. And a very, very memorable away day.
I was in the stand behind the goal. There were 3,000 plus Tranmere fans there. And that is, I think I'm right in saying, because I've done the research on this, I think bar the Everton, I don't think there's been 3,000 plus Tranmere fans at an away game since Everton, other than that Stockport match. Because why would there ever be? Basically, there's very few clubs who would be in a position to give you 3,000 at the levels that Tranmere are playing at. So that is the biggest away attendance Tranmere have had since Everton, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And as in stand behind the goal. And it was at the very early stages of social media, or certainly Twitter was really just about beginning to take off at this point. And Twitter was being used, as it is now, as a place to update scores. And I don't think Sky Sports apps had really come, and certainly things like Flash Score weren't developed. But I do remember at least once there was a rumour of a goal going around that led to a big cheer on the terrace. And it ended up being, in the words of Donald Trump, fake news. I can't remember that happening too many times from a Tranmere fan point of view, because there's been very few occasions where there have been so much riding on something on the last day of the season. There have been occasions where there was Bradford, for example, in 2013-14, and there have been occasions where things have gone down to the wire, but never that close other than Bradford and Stockport. And I just remember it be that the rumours going around of a goal elsewhere and them proving incorrect.
I think, yeah, as you say, I mean, for myself and you as well, we'd never seen a promotion. We'd never seen a trophy lift. We'd never had that at that stage. So I think that sort of staying up on the final day and having that moment where you can run on the pitch and hug all your mates and jump up and down, even though it was just to escape relegation. I think that's what sort of makes it so special in my mind, is that at that time, I'd never had the opportunity to do those things because, like I say, we'd never won a cup. We'd never got promotion or anything like that. So I think that's why it's so special for me. And as I say, the Les factor, and I feel very strongly about this. I think one of the blights on our club is our treatment of Les towards the end as manager. I really I'm very, very sad about how Les was treated by the fan base towards the end of his tenure as manager, because he was Mr. Tranmere. He was an outstanding servant as a physio. He stepped up to be manager when we were right in the shit, and he saved us. And, you know, I just remember at the time when it all went sour, the Parry out banners, the singing, the protests. As I look back now, I just think it's a blight on our history as a fan base to treat one of our own like that. And I think, you know, we get a lot right as a fan base, but I think that's something that, yeah, as a collective fan base, we got very wrong. And I'm sad that probably Les doesn't show his face much at Tranmere anymore, and maybe wouldn't, you know what I mean? He may feel a little bit embarrassed, but I think that's sad because, I mean, I've got a box of old programmes. One of my favourite things to do is go through and read his columns from the old programmes, which are the most un-PC things you can ever imagine. There's, you know, not a word of it would ever be published in this day and age, but some of the funniest stories and anecdotes and things from his column. And I just think, that's something that makes that day extra special for me, is the fact that he was in charge and he was able to lead us to safety.